The only person ever forensically tied to the scene where a 10-year-old girl was found has been dead since 2003. He was never charged, never even called a suspect. And in 2025, 32 years after Holly Piirainen vanished chasing a litter of puppies down a Massachusetts lake road, the same office set up a table in a town hall and started swabbing strangers' cheeks, hoping a distant cousin could finally name a killer. If they already have a forensic match, why are they begging the public for DNA? The answer is the whole reason this file has never closed. Holly Kristen Piirainen was 10 years old. She lived in Grafton, Massachusetts. But in the first week of August 1993, she was where a lot of kids were that summer, at her grandparents' lakefront cottage in Sturbridge, the kind of place with a screen door that never quite latches. On the morning of the 5th of August, a neighbor down the road had puppies. For a 10-year-old, that is the entire world. Holly took her 5-year-old brother by the hand, and the two of them set off to go look at them, walking the short stretch between Allen Road and South Shore Road. Her little brother came back. Holly did not. He was 5. He couldn't tell anyone exactly what had happened on a road he'd walked 100 times. Holly's father went looking almost immediately. He didn't find his daughter. What he found lying in the dirt at the edge of South Shore Road was one of her sneakers. A missing 10-year-old in rural New England in 1993 brings out everything a community has: state police, local officers, dog teams, neighbors who took the week off from work to walk a grid through the woods. They searched the lake. They searched the cottages. They searched the long shoulders of South Shore Road, where the sneaker had been. Looking for the second one, looking for anything. The story went national. Holly's school picture, a girl with a careful, slightly shy smile, went up in store windows and on the evening news from Boston to Springfield. People who had never met her could draw her face from memory. Weeks went by. Then a month. The search that had filled the woods with volunteers thinned out, the way they always do, until it was mostly just the family and a few investigators who couldn't let it go. And then, on the 23rd of October, 2.5 months after Holly walked toward those puppies, 2 men went out into the Brimfield woods to hunt. The hunters were deep in the Brimfield woods off a dirt track called 5 Bridge Road, roughly 7 miles from the spot where Holly's sneaker had been found. Among the leaves and fallen branches, they found skeletal remains. After 10 weeks in the open, that was what was left to find. It was Holly, the wait was over, and it had ended in the worst possible way. The way every family on a missing child search is quietly bracing for and praying against at the same time. But here is what those 10 weeks had taken. Because of the condition of the remains, the medical examiner could not determine how Holly had died. No cause of death, no clear weapon. The single most basic question in any homicide, what was done to her, had no answer on the table. A child was gone, a county was grieving, and the investigators had almost nothing physical to point them at a person, almost. There was one thing in those woods that didn't belong to Holly at all. What follows a case like this is the part true crime usually skips, the years where nothing happens. The leads thin, the reward posters fade in the windows. The detectives who knew the file by heart retire or move on. Investigators had theories. In the same stretch of central Massachusetts, other young people had vanished over the years. And the public did what the public does. It tried to tie the cases together to make one monster out of separate tragedies. But theories are not evidence. Investigators looked hard at whether Holly's disappearance was connected to any of the others, and they could prove none of it. Each open file stayed its own open file. So Holly's case did what most cold cases do. It went into a box. Physical evidence collected in 1993, carefully bagged, carefully labeled, sat on a shelf waiting for a science that hadn't been invented yet. It would sit there for almost 20 years, and then, in January 2012, the lab finished a test on that old evidence. and the result lined up with one specific human being. On the 3rd of January 2012, the Hampden County District Attorney, Mark Mastroianni, stood up and announced the first real break in 19 years. Forensic testing, he said, had indisputably linked the 1993 crime scene evidence to a specific man. His name was David Pouliot, a former Brimfield resident. For a family that had waited 19 years to hear anyone, connected by hard science to the place their daughter was found. This was the moment, and then in the same breath, the district attorney took it away. David Pouliot, he said, was linked forensically, but he was not a suspect. Read that again, not a suspect. The one human being the evidence pointed to, and the office that found the link refused to call him the person who did this. There was a reason they could afford to be that careful. David Pouliot was not going to be arrested, was not going to be questioned, was not going to deny anything. He had died in 2003, 9 years before his name was ever attached to this case. So how does a forensic link point at a man and still not make him a suspect? This is the part the headlines flattened, and it is the entire shape of this case. A forensic link means the evidence and the person share something the lab can measure. It does not by itself explain how that connection got there, or when, or what it means. And it cannot be tested against the one person who could explain it, because that person is in the ground. A living suspect can be interviewed, confronted, placed on the lake road or kept far away from it. A dead man can be linked and nothing more. You can put his name next to the evidence, and then you hit a wall that no amount of certainty can get you over. And there is a careful, deliberate reason a district attorney says the words "not a suspect" out loud about a dead man. In America, you do not get to brand someone a child killer when he can never stand in a courtroom and answer it. Pouliot left no defense behind him, so the office linked him and stopped, which left the investigators exactly where they'd started in one sense. With a child gone and no one they could charge, the match didn't close the case. It just told them the answer might be reachable, if they could get to it a different way. While the case sat at that wall, the people who refused to let it sit there were Holly's family, her grandmother, her aunts, the ones who had walked the woods in 1993 and never really stopped. In October 2017, 24 years after Holly vanished, they launched a public campaign and gave it a name that was also a prayer, hope for Holly. They brought in a cold case consultant, Dr. Sarah Stein, and they put up a $40,000 reward for anyone who could move the case 1 inch forward. Think about what that takes. A quarter of a century after the worst day of your life, standing in front of cameras, holding up a 10-year-old school photo, asking strangers to remember a summer most of them had long forgotten. The campaign had a logic to it. Someone out there knew something. A child does not walk off a lake road in broad daylight without somebody somewhere holding a piece of it. And the family was right, that a piece of it was still out there. The district attorney's office had been holding one specific object from those woods for 30 years. And in 2023, they decided it was time the public finally saw it. The object was a tank top, white, child-sized, with one word printed across the front in blue, purple, and pink lettering, Boston. It had been found in the Brimfield woods in October 1993, near 5 Bridge Road, close to Holly's remains. And here is why it mattered. It was not Holly's. Nobody in her family recognized it. It had no tags, no size markings, nothing to trace it back to a store shelf. For 30 years, that shirt sat in evidence as one of the only physical things from the scene that belonged to someone other than the victim. A piece of clothing that walked into those woods on somebody. The question was always, whose? In February 2023, the current district attorney, Anthony Gallooni, did something investigators almost never do. He took that tank top out of the evidence room, held it up in front of the press, and asked the public a single question. Does anyone recognize this shirt? It was an admission, really 30 years in. And the surest thread the case had was a child's white tank top that nobody could place. They were that close to the bottom of the well, and that far from a name. Here is the thread that ties the dead man and the public swabbing together, the thing that makes 2025 make sense. The science that has changed cold cases in the last decade is called forensic genetic genealogy. It starts the same way a 2012 match did, with DNA from a crime scene. But instead of asking, does this match one person we already have, it asks something bigger. Who anywhere in this country is related to whoever left this behind? It works by running that crime scene profile against the family trees built from public ancestry databases. The same kind millions of people have spit into a tube and uploaded to find a grandparent. You don't need the killer in the database, you need a cousin, a second cousin. Aunt 3 states away who mailed off a kit to learn where her family came from. That is how investigators have closed cases that sat cold for 40 years. They don't find the suspect in the database. They find his relatives, build the tree down, and arrive at a name from the side, which is exactly why the Hampden County needed something he could not get from a lab alone. He needed people. He needed the public to walk in and hand over their DNA on purpose. And in October 2025, that is exactly what he asked for. On the 23rd of October 2025, exactly 32 years to the day after Holly's remains were found in those woods, District Attorney Anthony Gallooni announced it, a public forensic genetic genealogy event, open to the community. On the 9th of November 2025, they held it at a public safety complex on Wales Road in Brimfield. Minutes from where she was found, residents lined up to do something almost no cold case has ever asked of the general public. They sat down and let investigators swab the inside of their cheeks. The idea was simple and a little staggering. Build a genetic map of the people who live in the area where Holly disappeared. The families who were here in 1993, whose roots run through these towns. Then run the crime scene DNA against that map and see whose branch it lands on. This is what the case had come to. Not an arrest, not an interrogation. A folding table, a stack of swab kits, and an entire town invited to volunteer the one thing that might point, through somebody's cousin, somebody's uncle, at whoever walked Holly into those woods. It would be easy to end this on hope. The science is real. Cases older than this one have fallen to a cousin in a database. It is genuinely possible that a cheek swab collected in a Brimfield town hall in 2025 carries the thread that finally reaches a name. But sit with what that hope is built on. 32 years. A medical examiner who could never say how she died. A forensic link to a man who has been dead since 2003 and was never charged with anything. A white tank top nobody can place. And a town being asked to spit into tubes because every other door has been tried and closed. Holly Piirainen was 10 years old. She walked down a lake road on a summer morning to look at a litter of puppies, holding her little brother's hand. One of them came home. Everything since, the search, the woods, the box on the shelf, the dead man's name, the shirt held up to the cameras, the strangers in line with their mouths open for a swab. All of it has been 32 years of people refusing to accept that the answer is simply gone. And as of today, the file is still open. No one has ever been charged. The question her father asked on South Shore Road in 1993, "Where is my daughter? And who did this?" has only ever been half answered. They found Holly, they have never found who. The woods off 5 Bridge Road are still there. The Lake Road is still there. And somewhere, maybe in a town hall on Wales Road, maybe in a database, a stranger uploaded to find their grandmother. There may still be a thread that leads back to an August morning in 1993. A 10-year-old went to see some puppies. 32 years later, the only thing the people who loved her have ever asked for is a name. and the file stays open because no one has given them one yet.